We will now call the board meeting to order. We have a quorum. We will begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now hear from Dr. Merrill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and the public. With winter break upon us, I want to urge our 19,000 employees and our 160,000 students and their families to remember the break in winter break. Looking back at the successes in Wake County Public School System the past year, it's well-deserved for that break. Our facility staff opened 3 brand-new school buildings. We received the largest Magnet Grant Award in our history. Our graduation rate once again reached its highest point as we continue to make progress toward our Vision 2020 goal of annually graduating at least 95% of our students ready for productive citizenship as well as higher education or a career. Many school districts would be happy to claim a single one of those 3 successes I just mentioned. In our district, this is just a very short list of the highlights made possible by employees and students who strive every day to realize their full potential. So take the time to recharge this winter break. Spend valuable time with family and friends. Refreshed and renewed, we'll be ready to hit the ground running in 2018. For the past 13 years, Antelope Magnet High School students have organized and hosted a charity ball that has raised more than $500,000 for local charities. This year's event, held December 9th, raised $181,000, far exceeding the $150,000 goal. All proceeds will benefit the Oak City Center, a multi-service complex being built by the Raleigh-Wake Partnership to end and prevent homelessness. Slated to open next November, the Oak City Center will provide access to the services that homeless populations need the most, including financial, medical, mental health, and employment assistance. It's certainly a worthy cause and an excellent example of the community engagement we encourage as part of our strategic plan. Congratulations to the Antelope students and staff who worked for months to ensure the charity ball was a major success. Thank you. And lastly, tonight I'd like to share a very heartwarming story, perfect for this time of year. Petty Officer 3rd Class Alex Gomez serves in the Navy. He's been serving on an aircraft carrier in the Pacific and hasn't seen his family since last Christmas. Petty Officer Gomez is finally back home, and he showed up last week at East Wake Middle School to surprise his little brother, Umayas, a 7th grader. So please take a look at the following video.
What started as a normal day at East Wake Middle School turned into a lesson of love when Naval Aviation Ordnanceman Alex Gomes crashed this first period language arts class to surprise his 12-year-old baby brother, Amias.
Does anybody know this guy?
Jesus, you are tall. What's going on, dude?
3rd Class Petty Officer Gomes is in the Navy and hasn't seen his family since last Christmas. He spent the past year on an aircraft carrier, serving in some of the most dangerous areas of the world, like North Korea.
Last time I saw him, he was about, to the side of my hip, and now he's almost eye level with me. Kind of makes me mad because that means I'm the shortest of the family. But it was great. It was great. I had butterflies with my mom in the doorway, waiting to open the door, and then saw this giant stand up and give me a hug, and it just, like all the troubles I had of everything, North Korea coming up and everything, just went away, and it just feels like I'm home again.
Understandably, the unexpected reunion brought tears of joy for Amias, who thought he wouldn't get to see his big brother this year.
I didn't expect it, and it's good to see him because I don't know what's ever going to happen to him.
Do you worry about your brother being over there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all right. Real men cry. It's all right. Real men cry.
The Gomes brothers are still waiting for their middle brother to join them from Boston on December 21st. Then the family will be complete and ready to cram as much Christmas cheer into Alex's 2 weeks leave that they can.
My mom is, arroz con pollo, candules, her famous, desserts, and a lot of late night gaming to me and him on the Xbox together like we used to do back in the day.
It's also a Christmas wish come true for their mother, Wanda Dos Santos.
It was hard. It was hard, and I wanted Amaya to keep the faith that there is a God, and he has done such a wonderful job as a kid in school and sports, supporting home, being at home. He's such a helper that I just wanted to give him a gift that it wasn't bought in the stores. I hope it does send out a message to families that it's not about the gifts and it's not about, you know, anything else but family, and that's what's important.
Love you.
You do. I mean, I have to go right after the video, and I did not get tissue as Miss Hardenstein did. So many messages in that video. The meaning of family, the impact that that our schools and our teachers and everyone who surrounds our kids in that school building never know the fullness of what they're holding. And that young man just explained to us that he's carrying with him every day, worrying about his brother's life, while his brother is in turn protecting all of our freedom. And so there's a ton of messages, and I will definitely commend brother for reminding him that it's okay for him to cry, and especially for a middle schooler. There's tons of message for those of us who have middle schoolers that those emotions you can't control and you shouldn't. It is healthy. So indeed, I'm very happy for this family, and Mom had on her Boston hat waiting for her middle son from Boston to return home. All wonderful things, and for those of us who need pieces to hold on during the holidays when it's tough, these are the moments and people that you want to remember. That love and family absolutely can heal lots of wounds, and so I'm going to leave that there as extremely emotional. I will only have one comment tonight, and that is to thank our staff who put together our bus tour, and also our schools and our staff who opened their doors to us. Many of you may recall that we offered an invitation to our county commissioners to go on a bus tour jointly at our last joint meeting with the commissioners, and we were able to do that and visit 3 schools. And we were really able to, I think, and our other board members will probably comment on the experience, commissioners who go into our schools to volunteer are noting that it's a part of their work to pay for our buildings, but I think it was, for me, the benefit is they saw the distinct difference from how we were building buildings 50 years ago and how we're building buildings now, and the direct connection they have to our student engagement, and the ability that we all got to see students were actually what I would say is better at multitasking than we give them credit for, meaning students were working on very different projects, and a teacher was inside a room teaching, and she could still see outside the window to see how those students were collaborating. So we saw the 4 C's in action, but most importantly, I believe we saw the resilience our students have in their abilities to the way in which they can manage in this new environment, and it's adults who have to catch up with where they are with the 4 C's. And it's a little sad to see that there's no storage in our old buildings, and so recognizing the ingenuity that some of our principals have to have when their buildings are not newer buildings, and how they're ensuring that their students get what they need, and how they're trying to build in the 4 C's when their buildings aren't absolutely structured that way, and there's not furniture for those things. And we definitely, I believe, some of our board members, along with our commissioners, tried out some of the new furniture, the little swivelly chairs and other pieces of equipment that are very new to engage our strategic plan. So I thank the staff again, and definitely thank our commissioners for going on the bus tour with us. And that will close my comments. Dr. Merrill spoke highly about how we should all restore and rest and come back ready in the new year. So may everyone enjoy the next, how many days are left in this month? Roughly 10 before we're in a new year. And the beauty of, for me, the beauty of a winter break at the end of December is starting anew, whether that's diets or resolutions or whatever it is you do to start your new, those are the 2 things I'm going to do. Just hints there, eat better, exercise. Those are my things on my list. For whatever we do, we'll be able to take full advantage of our time, even if it's for ourselves, that we have the right to take care of ourselves so that we're renewed in 2018. And I wish you all well for the remainder of 2017. Dr. Martin.
Just very briefly, I'd like to extend holiday wishes to everyone, staff, students, community members. good admonition, take some rest. I need to remember that myself. And I also want to call out a huge congratulations to the Enloe students and staff. $180,000 to help end homelessness here in Wake County. Our family was partners in that effort for the 7 years my kids were at Enloe. It's a great effort, and to see this charity ball continue and grow is fantastic. Congratulations, you guys are doing great work.
Mr. Fletcher.
I'm going to pass tonight.
Ms. Cash. Ms. Mahaffey.
I just want to take a moment and congratulate the North Carolina North Central Region Principal of the Year, Mr. Jonathan Enns, who was a very good sport wearing a crown and a Mr. Principal sash yesterday. And if you've ever met Mr. Enns, he does not enjoy the spotlight. But he wore it well because, as he said, it's not just him, it's a culmination of the work that his colleagues in his building, his students, and the community at Fuquay High do that make him able to achieve such a great honor. And in the spring, he will compete against 8 other principals in the state for the North Carolina Principal of the Year. So congratulations to the Fuquay-Varina Bengals, and I know that they are riding high going into 2018 with this.
Ms. Hartenstein.
2 years ago, I began a journey of visiting with principals in Wake County, and the group was only, about 12. We're now up to 30. In the last 10 days, I've been in 30 schools in Wake County, and that's about 15%. And what I continue to be impressed with is how positive our principals are with the work that is in front of them. The tasks have not changed in 2 years since I retired, but the work that they do with such a positive attitude and managing all of the tasks that a principal has to manage. It's a treat for me, truly, to walk into a building and be able to drop off a little surprise and see the good things that are happening. And it's so wonderful when principals say, do you have a minute? Can I show you? And they'll take me to one new thing that they've been working on. And I heard a comment this time that I have never heard. A principal said, I cannot wait till we do the EOGs in May, because I know that we have everything in place for students to succeed. That's pretty exciting. So instead of it being a burden, it's an opportunity to show achievement and success. So it has been a great 10 days for me. I also want to congratulate TJ Crawley, who is in my district, District 7. He has now become the mayor of Morrisville and is an advocate for education, as well as the other council members in Morrisville. So it's great to have partners who are supporting our schools here in Wake County. I'd also like to congratulate Jessica Holmes on becoming chair of our county commissioners. A true advocate for children, for affordable housing, for education, and who will be a strong leader, working, I believe, very closely with our strong and wonderful chair, Ms. Johnson-Hostler. So it's been a lot of celebration in the last couple of weeks. I enjoyed our tour on the bus. That was I haven't been on a bus in a while. I'm one of those few people that walk to school, not 50 miles, but I walked to school or rode my bicycle, even in middle school, every day. I was not afforded the opportunity to ride a yellow bus. So I had a good time on that activity bus. So thank you.
Mr. Agee.
During last Friday's joint board site visit, what I observed did not change my thoughts about facilities and teaching I observed in my 28 years as a facilities department employee. At the 2 older facilities, I saw the overcrowding that has been occurring for over 25 years, only is worse today than previously. It was explained by the principals at both of these schools the issues that are present by having the schools so far above the design capacity. I also saw that no matter which school we were at, the engagement of the students was no different. I believe that this engagement is the goal we seek. Both of these older sites are currently being planned for expansion to either increase or keep the current student population at each of these locations. I say that is bad planning and not good for the students. I believe that we've gotten the schools much too large. Having 100% of the student population engaged should be our goal, and this will lead to student achievement. And I believe the smaller school populations will help this. We hear a lot of talk about the 4 C's. Well, I think we must have engagement first. Speaking of engagement, I believe we're going to have a number of engaged families here this evening. They're engaged in a mission to have Buckhorn Creek open as a year-round school. We've heard that the construction schedule will not permit opening in time, but the current construction schedule substantial completion date is July 3. In years past, prior consideration of opening a new school as year-round, this was changed much later in the process than we are at now, and the year-round openings did occur. With experienced management, this is possible. Since the last board meeting, there have been additions to the options for families in the affected area. This only serves to confuse the issue even more, with parents having to once again present the difficulties to these new options create. I do not see this as a compromise when one side is not seeing the present offer as any advantage. We have heard that there are not enough traditional calendar seats in this part of the county. To that I say we just do not have enough seats. I don't care what the calendar is. Since I joined the board a year ago, I've been calling for a new direction in the facilities department, as I believe it is badly broken. New management is needed with strong on-the-ground construction management skills. A few years ago, a report was prepared by Harry Program Management. I quote a statement from this report. It is Harry's opinion that the FD&C organization requires attention in order to become a healthy and high-performing organization again. That's the end quote. This well-respected consultant states that the previous status, from my experience, From my experience, this change began after the 2003 bond program started and has become much worse since 2008. The report highlighted many items of concern, most of which have not been addressed. The largest result from Harry's report has been the hiring of another construction management consultant with a multi-million-dollar contract that has not produced any work for board review in the 2 years since the contract was approved. I've stated previously that Wake County Schools needs to use a prioritized list for student assignment. I now call for the facilities department to have a prioritized list with seating capacity as the #1 item. This prioritization on seating should lead to a new direction in the facilities plan. I've thought a great deal about the current 7-year rolling facilities plan. I see this plan as one without hard milestones to meet and budgets to be kept. If we look at the acceleration in the cost of schools, I believe this position is supported.
Ms. Kushner.
Thank you. I just have a brief announcement. I was able to go to the, I thank Wake Ed Partnership for inviting me to the beginning teacher leadership group that they have, and I'm here to extend that invitation. They meet on a monthly basis to all my colleagues on the school board, so I'll be sending y'all an email about being able to attend one of their meetings. It's a great group of first, second, and third year teachers, along with mentors. They go through policy issues. They're all working on a policy project to learn more about not just what goes on in the classroom, but also what goes on in state and local policy. So they've been asking me questions about our school board policy. But they, and it's also a way for them not to be so isolated in their first years of teaching. So I wanted to extend that invitation to my colleagues.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton, we saved you for last this evening.
Thank you. And first, want to again thank staff and county commissioners and all the folks that were involved in the site visits on Friday. I think it was particularly enlightening for all of us that participated and seeing, again, some of the differences that exist in our schools across the county, and hopefully we can take a lot of what we learned from that and move forward. And Ms. Hartenstein's band, I want to continue toward the celebration, if you will, and recognize a few folks this evening, some of them that are here with us in the audience. And so I'll ask you to please stand as I call your name. Let me start by talking about a event that I was invited to Tuesday last week. That was an induction ceremony for the National Achievers Society. I want to read just a little bit about the National Achievers Society, where we have a number of chapters throughout the district. The National Achievers Society seeks to primarily recognize and encourage achievement among African American youth and other youth of color through the principles of achievement, service, leadership, and dedication. The National Achievers Society main goal is to create a national group achievement presence in which young people can aspire and participate. Another purpose of the National Achievers is to promote community service and cultural awareness for the schools and the community at large. The society is designed to reduce the negative peer pressure associated with academic achievement that is often experienced by youth of color. On last Tuesday, we inducted into the National Achiever Society over 350 students. That induction ceremony took place at Wake Forest High School and involved students from 5 schools across the area, 1 school out of Franklin County, which is Franklinton High, and then the 4 Wake County schools that were involved were Wakefield, Wake Forest, Heritage, and a new chapter that was established at Apex High School. And so joining the ranks of hundreds of students that are currently National Achiever Society members, it was a wonderful sight to see a gymnasium full of 350 students that were seating on the floor, and throughout the gymnasium was filled with proud parents of students that were of all races, African American, Hispanic, Indian, and others. The speaker was Mr. Barakat. You may remember his family, his brother and wife and sister-in-law, I believe, were killed senselessly in a murder in Chapel Hill a couple of years ago. And so he was the keynote speaker and brought a wonderful message to the students and parents that were there. I raised this event because there are 2 young ladies that I want to recognize who are current advisors of the National Achiever Society and have been a part of this effort since March of 2001 when we first started the National Achiever Society here in Wake County. And that is Ms. Deirdre Williams, who could not be here tonight, from Heritage High School, and Ms. Bettina Pope, who was here with us and is an advisor at Wake Forest High School. Ms. Pope, would you please stand? While at Wake Forest High School on that day was informed and excited to hear that I had just missed one of our former students, Mr. Bryce Love. All of you all know, who was a Heisman finalist and was here in town, I think, visiting his brother, if I'm not mistaken, and had been by the school that day. Sorry I missed him, but I wanted to take a minute again to just recognize him and his family. They could not be here tonight, obviously, but I don't know where we've had a Heisman finalist in Wake County Public School System, and so certainly want to recognize him in his efforts and continue our well wishes for him as he pursues a bowl game later this year. And of course, if you heard about his exploits both on and off the field, looks to be a pediatrician and is studying at Stanford. And so we are quite proud of him. But of course, he could not do all that he has done and continues to do without the help of a particular coach. And his high school coach here tonight, Coach Reggie Love, is here. And of course, not only was he Bryce Love's former coach, but he himself just coached the Wake Forest high school varsity football team to its second consecutive high school state championship. And so, Mr. Lucas, thank you for being here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you all had a record over the last 2 years. Is it 31-0? Am I right? So 2 consecutive undefeated years and 2 consecutive high school championships. So I want to just recognize him. And last but not least, you can't have a National Achiever Society, an induction of 350 students in one evening at a high school campus, or a Heisman finalist, or a coach who's able to do all that he does, if you don't have a supportive and caring and nurturing principal who makes all of that happen, who oversees and runs all of those things at a particular school, and in my opinion creates a culture for all of these wonderful things to happen and for success to be a part of that school. So I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Ms. Patty Hamler. Principal at Wake Forest High. So I just wanted to send a special shout out to all of those folks. Again, Ms. Williams, who could not be here, Bryce Love and his parents, who could not be here. But thank you, Coach Lucas, Ms. Pope, Ms. Hamler, for braving the traffic to get over here at 5:30, because it's not easy, especially coming from Wake Forest. I think they had to leave at about 4:30 or so just to even get here. But thank you for all that you do. We certainly appreciate you and recognize that excellence in Wake County comes in all forms and all shapes and sizes and even shades. And so to our motto, or our new tagline, what starts here, obviously changes everything. So thank you all for all that you do. Please give them another round of applause.
It's been a great 2017. Yes, Principal? Thank you. Excuse me. We will now move to the approval of our meeting agenda. We will remove facilities items F, named for new elementary school E46. It will be brought back on January 2nd. I will now move for approval for the amended agenda.
Agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. We will now move to our information item. Marlo Gaddis is joining us at the podium. Class size report confirming compliance with House Bill 13.
Good evening. Vice Chair Martin, esteemed board members, it is always a pleasure getting to spend a little bit of time with you. I'm standing today before you in order to give you some information regarding the class size report that confirms our compliance with House Bill 13. With me is Don Castongue, Senior Director for Information Systems, and Sandy Honeycutt, Director of Student Information Systems. Pursuant to House Bill 13, LEAs are required to monitor class size in grades K through 3 across the district. We are also required to report our K-3 class size compliance twice a year, November and February. We must report on our agency overall class size, average class size, as well as the individual school class sizes, which should be at 23, and our overall average is at class size 20 for all K-3 classrooms. The North Carolina Department of Public Instruction recently provided us with the final copy of our fall class size report. Wake County Public School System is in compliance with the LEA average class size for K-3, which is a 20-student class size average. The report identified a total of 4 individual school core curricular classes that contain more than the current legislated limit of 23 students. These overages are due to the individual needs of students that cannot be met in another class at this time. It also identified 91 enhancement classes at the K-2 level that have overages. We will be submitting a waiver for these classes per the guidelines that have been prescribed by the Department of Public Instruction. If you will turn your attention to the supporting documents in your agenda, the first one we're going to look at is the class size waivers all. On this, the first request in our waivers is on waiver form B. It's asking for the 91 exceptions for enhancement classes such as arts disciplines, physical education and health, and world languages. The next 4 waivers on waiver form A, which follow, ask for the exceptions with 3rd grade math classes at Heritage, Jones Dairy, and Oak Grove Elementary Schools. These 4 classes all have a 2nd grade student that qualifies for single subject acceleration, and they need 3rd grade instruction. These schools are all on year-round calendars, and there is no other scheduling option on the track that the students attend. To support these waivers, you can look next at the exceptions report. Here you'll see those classes that exceed the 1 to 23 maximum class size. 91 of these, as you'll see, as we described from waiver form B, are enhancement classes. 4 are the 3rd grade math classrooms, and 6 have been corrected at the school level and should not be on the report. As requested by the staff at NCDPI, we listed those here as overage no longer present, so they have been corrected. The 3rd document in your information is the class size affidavit. After sharing this report with you today, Dr. Merrill is to sign the affidavit and return it to the Department of Public Instruction. The final document for your review is the class size impact infographic. I'm going to ask that you look at the revised version. Here we gather data from various departments such as academic advancement, finance, facilities, and technology services. They're related to the time, money, and space requirements spent to meet the new class sizes this year and next. So if you are looking at that document, the first thing you will notice in 2017-2018 is a $1.2 million spend that is based on 175.54 months of employment that were added to meet the class size report. And that data came from our budget office. The next one you'll see is approximately 900 hours have been spent by the district, both in the class size reduction committees and through technology services in student information systems. The next one is related to our mobile units. In order to meet class sizes, we had to add additional 18 trailers, and we took 36 more out of retirement. At that cost is approximately $1.8 million. Yeah, big difference. The last documentation on this particular one is instructional spaces, and this all comes to you from the Facilities Committee meeting in August, and this is not new information. The one piece on here that I do want to point out is that we do know that 23 art and music classrooms were put on carts. For next year, these are estimates. We're looking at approximately $25 million in order to add 4,347 months of employment. This number could go greater if the legislators do not fund enhancement classes for next year. And then again, based on the documentation in August in Facilities Committee, we are looking at a net deficit of about 9,200 seats based on the new class size of 17 versus the current 23.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on.
It's okay.
Wow. Yeah. Any questions, comments other than astonishment? Ms. Kushner.
I do. I want to thank Madam Chair for bringing this report to our attention and the staff. I have one weird question: why technology has had to spend so much. I mean, it's impacting so broadly. I have to admit that for the technology department to have been so integral in developing this report is also astonishing to me, all the work that's had to be done. But one of the feedback on the infographic, I just want us to be really clear about how we refer to HB 13, because there's been different versions of HB 13. There's a version of HB 13 that would help us a great deal. There's other versions that are not helping us. If we can work, both the board and working with our legislative staff and communication staff to make sure we're communicating to parents once the legislature is back in session, what legislation would aid us and give us some relief from the class size limits. If that makes sense. It's more directed to communications and technology.
Yeah, that's why I looked. I was like, no.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So you just,
We'll work together
yes,
on that.
thank you.
You're welcome.
But thank you for the infographic. It'll be very,
Mr. Fletcher.
So clarifying the 2017-18, 2018-19 months of employment, these will be academic classroom teachers?
Correct.
So, all right, that's in round numbers 435 additional teachers. If Wake County needs 10% of the state's supply of teachers to do this, I mean, if this is 10% of what's going to be needed to do class size reduction across the state, that's 4,350 teachers that aren't in North Carolina today.
Yes.
So whatever decision the legislature makes, now is the time to make it, because recruiting another 400 teachers between now and July of teachers who don't know we have positions available is really an issue. And doing it after July means the quality of the pool will be significantly less than it might be today. So I'm concerned about that. And to think of 9,200 lost seats, that is equivalent to every elementary school we've built since 2013. So we've built 11 elementary schools with different funding sources since 2013. That's essentially wiping those off the board in terms of capacity gains for our instructional program. So as taxpayers, that's a challenge. That's a big challenge. The other thing, I'm talking about numbers here, but the other thing that really is a challenge for me to understand is how this mandate actually improves instruction. I do not see it having a net sum gain for our children. The fourth and fifth grades in many of our elementary schools are extremely large classes. Some of the co-teaching strategies of having 35 kids in a classroom with 2 teachers, having art on a cart is one thing. I'm not sure how you get the tempera paint to dry. Having music on a cart, imagine being in the classroom next door trying to teach math while percussion instruments are being played as part of a rhythmic exercise. So it's just the mandate is not well thought out, and my hope and prayer is that the legislature realizes that what on the surface would seem to be a great way to improve outcomes for kids is actually detrimental to the quality of instruction going on in our schools. So that's my editorial. Thank you for your report. I think it is interesting that many of the exceptions are in multi-track schools, and probably most of those are on tracks that have single loaded tracks. I mean, where there's one classroom per grade on those tracks. There's more, it's more complicated. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Dr. Merrill?
I think the 25 million number for next year represents a liability if the enhancement is not funded. And you recall last year we split the difference in the budget and we put in about 13 million hoping that the legislature would be responsive to that. The enhancement teacher positions have yet to be funded, although there has been a promise that they would be addressed. We're urging the legislature to come back quickly to make those decisions, because if they wait until May, that is really too late to be notifying people that they're either okay or that we need to move them either into a conditional status or transfer. It's very late to be occurring, which is why I hope that the delay is intentional to wait for the February report. But there would still need to be some special time set aside by the legislature to address the funding of these positions. You will see a number again in our budget, which we're working on now, that's going to represent this liability. We have to put it there. Don't know whether we'll put all 25 million there. We might try and be optimistic again. But just wanted to address that. The number of vacancies needed, positions needed to bring down the class size could be drawn from these. It could also be drawn from people that are in other positions in central office and things of that nature. So we have a rough plan for how to address the supply, rough, and we can't necessarily meet it. But I think the statewide issues for the supply of K-3 teachers are real. And so, but I just wanted to try and talk about that.
Thank you.
That number.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other comments, questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break, really brief, and then we'll resume.
Had to go.
Thank you. And I didn't want to start the public comment. Yes. Okay. Now Jonathan's gone. Thank you. We will now resume with public comment. Citizens who sign up to address the board during public comment will be called on in priority order, first from items on the agenda and then for items not on the agenda. Each individual speaker will be allowed 3 minutes for remarks. Specific personnel or student matters are not appropriate for this public comment setting, but may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Emily Getz.
Hi, my name is Emily Getz. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you this evening. I live in Holly Springs. My family attends Holly Grove schools. I have 2 daughters. One will be a rising 5th grader next year at Holly Grove Elementary, and one will be a rising kindergarten, hopefully at Holly Grove Elementary. We've been coming to this school for many years. My niece started kindergarten here the second year the school had opened. Now she's a freshman at Holly Springs High School. I'm not sure if you understand how close-knit our school community is. We know all the kids, especially us. We know all the kids on track 2, grade 4. We know all the families, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters. We have been in this together since kindergarten. We volunteer in the classroom. We show up front and center for all the special events. We read to these wonderful kids at lunchtime. We chaperone field trips. This is our family school. We want to remain at our school. Let us finish where we start. I'm aware of the ongoing growth of our community. All of these new families are moving here for the same reason that my family did 13 years ago. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to work, to raise a family, and to attend a great school. If you feel it's absolutely necessary to uproot us from our foundation, then please open Buckhorn Creek as a year-round calendar. If that is not your vote today, please leave us where we are. Please allow the new school to fill with the many newcomers moving to our town daily. At the current rate, this will happen in no time. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Amanda, I really don't want to get your last name wrong because my...
Thank you. You have it by now. You just don't want to say it.
It's the same reason people call me Monica after knowing me for 5 years. If I knew it, I promise I would say it.
Okay. My name's Amanda Limatainen. Multiple times, our community has requested numbers or statistics from you. Here at public meetings, via email, over the phone, and in person. In many cases, we're still waiting for the numbers. I have some numbers or statistics that you should find of interest. 13, the number of years I've lived in my Holly Springs home. 8, the number of years I've had kids in Holly Grove schools on a year-round calendar. More than 8, the number of emails I've sent you in about 4 weeks. 6, meetings I've attended with regard to this topic. 140, the number of students per elementary school displaced by class size legislation per Mr. Fletcher. 662, the capacity of Buckhorn Creek if it's open traditional. 25% to 33%, estimated increased capacity of school offering a year-round calendar. 827 to 880, the number of students Buckhorn Creek could hold if it were opened year-round. If you're doing the quick math, even on the conservative side, the difference is 165. 76%, the population of students proposed to move from a year-round calendar to a traditional calendar in this proposal. But this is even larger than Buckhorn Creek. The moves proposed have at least 600 children changing schools and changing calendars. About 180 will change schools and have calendar alignment. The additional numbers of impacted students are what we've been asking for and have not yet received. 803, the number of signatures on the petition to open Buckhorn Creek as a year-round school. 93, the number of comments on the Envision website since the last board meeting, despite it not being advertised. 1, the number of comments on the website in favor of traditional calendar. $50,000, the average salary of a Wake County teacher. $200,000, the approximate cost of a trailer. 16, the number of trailers at Holly Springs Elementary School, my purported second year-round option. 2, the number of traditional calendar schools left off school assignments last proposal. 6, the number of trailers going to Oakview Elementary, open less than 2 years as a traditional calendar. 0, the number of parents that want to send their children to trailers. 2 districts directly affected by this change, 7 schools unable to plan. We've called and they don't know the answers about their own students. Countless are the number of excuses we've heard without data to support. 0 is the number of times the Board or Student Assignment has said to the community, how can we accomplish this together? Over $1 billion next year's bond proposal. Over 160,000 students in Wake County, 35 red shirts in the room. 15 years, the number of years I've been registered to vote in Wake County, 8 and 12, the ages of my Holly Grove students. 0, the number of people we've found that can explain the application process to the average family. 4 pillars for 2020. 3 of the 4 pillars ignored in this proposal. And 9 are the number of board seats up for election next year.
Laura Bishop.
The major problem in Southwest Wake County is a shortage of classroom seats. We just all heard the numbers on how many are being eliminated or being lost from the class size mandate. Our schools are already over capacity in utilizing trailers. Staff has admitted that the growth in Apex and Holly Springs has consistently outpaced projections. There are literally thousands of new homes currently being built, and you can bet they won't be the last. Opening Buckhorn Creek on a traditional calendar is foolish and contributes to the overall lack of seating. We've repeatedly been told that this must happen to accommodate the demand for traditional seats in our area. At the previous board meeting, the decision was delayed and student assignment staff was asked to specifically look at using Buckhorn Creek for its intended purpose to alleviate overcrowding at traditional schools and gauge whether traditional application requests might offset those of us who want to remain in our current year-round seats. This request was completely ignored in the revised proposal that was brought forth in the work session. When asked how many traditional calendar applications Buckhorn Creek would be able to accommodate, the answer was an astounding 0. 0 in the first year, possibly an application school in its second year. That means that no families who've been wanting traditional calendars are being given the option to actually apply and go there. We don't want to take their spots. This forced calendar change for the majority of Buckhorn Creek attendance area is disruptive to our lives and has been articulated by many parents. Wake County has provided 4 online feedback forms over the past 4 months. If there were parents out there who desperately wanted traditional calendars, this was their opportunity to speak up. In the 4 forums specifically regarding Buckhorn Creek, there were a total of 362 responses. 8 of those were in favor of a traditional calendar. 8 out of 362. On the most recent forum, only 1 comment stated that they looked forward to their assignment on a traditional calendar. 1 response out of 93. And I think that 1 student could easily be accommodated at Lincoln Heights or Holly Ridge or Oakview, much easier than the hundreds of us who will be competing for very few available year-round seats. Ms. Mahaffey, offering a second year-round option that may or may not be approved that still requires uprooting our children and sending them across town where they don't know a single soul is not a good compromise. To tell current students that they must choose either proximity or calendar is insulting when we chose our homes and community in order to have both, and especially considering the fact that new construction numbers have reportedly been included in the base assignment plan, meaning that future residents who are just now buying homes and moving into our area will be given our children's base seats because we're not allowed to grandfather at our current school. Buckhorn Creek opening as traditional serves no purpose. It's not an application school, so it's not providing a traditional calendar to families who wanted it. It is not providing additional capacity that year-round affords to deal with growth and class size reductions, and it is not providing stability to our children
I'm sorry,
who've
your
been
time has
assigned there.
expired.
Thank you.
Heather Beasley.
Good evening. My name is Heather Balsley. I'm a mother of 3 children, a resident of Holly Springs. We've met before. I want to talk about a couple different things tonight. Mostly stability and strategic planning for southwestern Wake County. Stability, I looked up a couple different meanings of the word stability today, and this was the definition I liked the most. Restoring a state of equilibrium or steady motion following a disturbance. A 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9-year-old child being moved from their current school to a new school, I think we can all agree would be a disturbance. The proposal that's in front of you guys this evening is reassigning close to 900 students in my town and the neighboring town. Moving a child from one school to another, as Amanda brought up, we are doing that for about 170 students that are allowed to keep their calendar. There are over 700 students being forced off of their calendar in this proposal. The opening of Buckhorn Creek Elementary does not only impact students that are being reassigned to it next year, but hundreds of other students as well. Last week, I got a call from one of my best friends whose child is a thriving first grader at Fuquay-Varina Elementary. And to her surprise, she said, we're going to this other school. It's, I think it's Ballantyne or it's Herbert Akins. It's not traditional. It's not what we've been on. And so I looked at everything in a bigger picture after that. The proposal you guys are voting on tonight is proposing to move 150 students from Willow Springs Elementary a year-round to Fuquay-Varina Elementary traditional. 350 students from Holly Grove Elementary and Herbert Akins Elementary to Buckhorn Creek, which is a proposed traditional. 150 students from Herbert Akins Elementary year-round to Lincoln Heights, a traditional school. That is over 600 students being reassigned from a year-round school to a traditional school. What I've asked for, and I've emailed every board member, and Roxy got back to me, but not with specifics, and I also emailed student assignment. The number of students that are being moved from Fuquay-Varina Elementary School, a traditional school, to Herbert Akins Elementary, a year-round school. And then another chunk of students are being moved from Herbert Akins Road, year-round, back to Fuquay-Varina Elementary traditional. Why are we swapping these students? I'll end with this. I would like to strongly encourage student assignment and the Board of Education to move forward in a thoughtful and meaningful way. When we look at reassignment, these students are 5 through 9 years old right now. In another 10 years, they will be in high school and college. How are we setting them up for stability in their childhood to provide a strong foundation to build successful adults? Thank you for your time.
Jeremy Merrill.
Hello, let me move that up. Hello, my name is Jeremy Merrill. First of all, thank you to the board for allowing me to speak this evening. I'm here to speak on Buckhorn Creek and why it should be opened as a year-round school. We all are well aware reassigning students is definitely a difficult task, probably not one that I would want to take on myself. However, when we look at the pillars that have been put out there, one of the pillars that's there, and they're all allegedly weighted equally, is stability. In my opinion, it does not seem as though you are adhering to this pillar when over 75% of the students are coming from year-round schools into what is proposed as a traditional school. Forcing these families to align to your bias for traditional calendars does not instill any stability in anybody's life. I understand that many years ago there was a lot of resistance to year-round schools. However, most of the families here tonight and those watching online that were unable to attend, they're impacted, and they're newer to Wake County schools. We have all fully embraced the year-round schedule and the year-round community. Throughout this process, I have been highly disappointed by the lack of consideration for the feedback from the community to both the board as well as staff. Community members have provided numerous levels of feedback and solutions. Every solution continues to be discarded without any thought or consideration behind it. The perception is that the voting community is repeatedly being ignored. It also appears as though we are receiving nothing more than lip service from the board and staff. We were constantly being told we had been heard. However, throughout each one of the drafts, the community was continually disappointed with the lack of change based upon the feedback received. In the last board meeting, there was discussion around solutions to keep current year-round students at their current school. However, if you look at the most recent draft, not only was it not even addressed, it wasn't even put down as an option. The only thing addressed in that latest draft was adding an additional application school that, frankly, I don't know how that works. This further shows staff is ignoring any feedback from not only the community, but also you, the board. I believe based on the data and the reassignment pillar of operational efficiency, it also makes most sense to open this school as year-round. If you're not aware by now, Holly Springs is going through a rapid growth, and we don't show any sign of that slowing down. Tonight, staff is asking you to approve their proposal. While it may seem like it's the right option, I tend to disagree. The feedback you have received through all sorts of media fully supports opening Buckhorn Creek as a year-round school. You are sitting at this meeting tonight because you have been elected to represent us, not the staff. This is your opportunity to show the community which group you choose to represent, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Beth Morrison.
Thank you for hearing me this evening. I am one of the parents of the over 600 plus children that will be affected by tonight's decision. 600 students that will be decided to uproot from their entire way of life and disregard how calendar affects them. My children are slated to be moved from Herbert Akins, a year-round school, to Buckhorn Creek, proposed traditional, a move that will change every part of their life. The school board stated at the beginning that they felt backed into a corner, and us parents tried to be kinder as our passion was being misinterpreted as accusatory. Now us parents are feeling backed into a corner, and we're upset. We have been told that there will be compromise, but I have yet to see or hear one that's been approved by both sides. This is not a simple school change. A simple school change would not affect vacations for my children or the amount of time they get to see their grandparents. A simple school change would not affect how my child learns. She needs breaks throughout the year. A simple school change would not make my child lose 4 weeks with me, 4 weeks that could be avoided. I chose to work full-time, but I also chose to live somewhere that had a year-round base so that I could be with them as much as possible. A simple school change would not affect the extracurricular activities and additional learning that Trackout provides. A simple school change will not affect everything in all of our children's lives, except for their address. But here we are, as student assignment, and some on the board act like this is a simple school change. I have heard that calendar is not a big deal, but let me tell you on behalf of every parent in the forum and here tonight that calendar is the deal. It's the deal that brought every one of us here tonight and why you've heard from all of us. Calendar affects every part of our life. I have heard, apply for a transfer to Holly Springs or Ballantyne. They're under-enrolled. Well, let me tell you, of the parents I heard from Oakview, it didn't go so well for them. I talked to at least 20 parents. I'm sure I could have found more if I had more time. They all applied to go to Holly Springs Elementary, and all were denied. So now I hear that you're putting trailers at Oakview next year because nobody could transfer to Holly Springs Elementary? Please don't waste another $500,000 plus in taxpayer money next year to put trailers at Buckhorn Creek Elementary because you're out of space. Please listen to the majority of parents that are pleading and begging you not to uproot our children's lives. In the future, please respect parents' wish for calendar and not moving children across calendar. Please make sure that there's enough room so that we won't be moving again next year. If we can't have Buckhorn Creek as year-round, please let us stay where we started.
Maureen Boudronis.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to comment on Student Assignment's new proposal of still opening up Buckhorn Creek as a traditional school. It has become clear to us that many of you on the board still don't understand the need Holly Springs has for an elementary school that can hold the max amount of students possible. I have sent email after email asking what is going to happen to our students when Buckhorn Creek meets capacity, which it will with the 1,700 houses being built within the school zone. Here is an example of what I think is going to happen. 18 months ago, Oakview Elementary opened in Holly Springs as a traditional school. Just like now, those parents fought for the school to be open as a year-round school. This was denied, and they were told that they could simply apply back for a calendar option at Holly Springs Elementary School. But guess what? They were denied. There was no room at Holly Springs Elementary School. The town of Holly Springs kept growing, and now Oakview, which has only been in operation for 18 months, will be starting the 2018 school year with 6 trailers. If that doesn't raise red flags for you, maybe this will. Oakview Elementary will have 6 trailers. Holly Ridge Elementary already has 8. Lincoln Heights has 7. Fuquay Elementary School has 16, and those are just our traditional schools. Holly Springs Elementary School has 16, Ballantyne has 4, and Holly Grove has 3. So please, when you vote tonight, think of our students. These are going to be your leaders. Open Buckhorn Creek year-round. Allow us to have seats for nearly 250 more students and give them a chance to succeed and not fail. They deserve it. Please do the right thing. It's not too late. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Alice Rook.
Hi, my name is Alice Roop, and I'm here tonight again to implore to this board that you listen to the parents who've repeatedly supported Buckhorn Creek opening as a year-round calendar school, or grandfather in those affected children indefinitely as an effort to enforce a stay where you start policy. This is not a situation where we've got a couple of disgruntled families trying to get their way. This is hundreds of families that you are causing undue hardship. Hundreds of us have come to you in your information sessions, spoken at meetings, signed petitions. I learned how to tweet. I sent emails. We've offered solutions. We've offered to do whatever you all need to help open the school as year-round, short of helping with the construction. Although I'm certain that if you ask for volunteers to move desks, paint, or whatever, you'll get them from this group behind me. We're the families that run the PTA, help raise funds, coordinate charity and donation drives, support the staff, and nurture the student body. We want to make any school that our kids go to a success. All of you before me have served in some sort of educational role. Please tell me now, if you can't agree with me, that children with shorter breaks away from school have better retention rates than kids with 3 months off during the summer. This is just common sense. We've been asking for months now to open Buckhorn as a year-round school because it's best for the children. It offers stability. It's close to home. It's best for the exponential growth in our town. Holly Springs has got to get the growth under control by electing new leadership, but until that's under control, we need to change the school to year-round for more seats. If this board still truly thinks that opening up Buckhorn Creek as a traditional school is best for our children, the stability in our community, then as voters, we've got to say shame on us. We've chosen the wrong people to make these decisions. It's no coincidence that the enrollment rate of charter schools, private schools, and homeschooling in Wake County has increased, as they offer stability for our kids that we just can't seem to get with Wake County public schools. The overwhelming majority of families you are moving to this school want to stay on a year-round calendar. Don't offer to let us apply to schools that offer no proximity to us and say that that's a reasonable option. Let's fill up Buckhorn Creek as a year-round school with these hundreds of families you've heard from the past 3 months. We're the type to get involved. We're active. We're resourceful parents that can make Buckhorn great. I'm much better used at the school than up here. The realignment drama is not a new one. Every year this happens with a new group or group standing before you with their colors on. The board that we need must make an effort to provide every child in Wake County with the stability that we need. You'll see me again. I apologize that I haven't been more active before.
Brent Stansel.
Good evening. Providing the kids of Wake County with a stable, safe, positive learning experience that will prepare them to reach their fullest potential and live productive lives should be your #1 mission as a school board member. As a parent of 2 of these Wake County students, it is my mission. Why I'm here speaking to you tonight is because I feel like Wake County School Board is dropping the ball. Shifting kids' schools and calendar options is not what I consider stable. Overcrowded schools with trailers busing kids across town is not what I consider safe. In our district, the growth rate of new families with young kids is happening at a rate that is unlike other areas of Wake County that are already developed. Year-round schools are a great option for areas with this type of growth. Yes, it is a bit of a foreign concept for most coming from outside of Wake County that have never experienced it before, but it does have a lot of advantages to many families, kids, taxpayers, and also the local economy. I believe what is best for our growing district is to open Buckhorn Creek Elementary School as a year-round school, which can be done. And after what I've heard tonight about seating issues, I don't know why anyone in their right mind would consider opening a new elementary school as traditional. But if you believe in your data that says that the demand is for traditional schools, then I plead with you to allow kids to keep their current seat at their current school on their current calendar schedule without everyone taking time, your time, our time, to apply and reapply to try and make that happen. Let those that choose to switch to traditional or those new to the area fill up that new school. As the kids are why we are all here this evening, please work with us to do what is best for the kids, and let's start providing them with stability. Stay where you start. Thank you. Mary
Karen Alston.
Please don't notice the barbecue stain. Just look at the cute kid instead. Hi, I'm Karen Gokiasen. I'm in Holly Springs. Educator Rita Pearson says every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. With that said, I really don't want to be here tonight. I almost said screw it and stayed home. There's so many other things I could be doing right now, including spending time with my kids. I decided, however, to come here tonight and speak with you once again. Why? Because I want my children to see that their mom is a champion for them. Sorry. I want to show them that they can fight for what they truly believe in, that even when the odds are stacked against them, they should leave it all out on the field and be proud in their efforts. I am here to continue to advocate for my children because I don't feel like the school assignment staff and the school board have been advocates for them lately. I feel like I've not been heard. I've emailed the board on 3 separate occasions. My messages were not even acknowledged with the cursory cut and paste response like others were. It took me 6 days to get a number from Glenn. I asked for a second number from him over a week ago, and that has yet to have been acknowledged. Those are my feelings. Now here are some facts. I wanted to find out how many kids were being swapped back and forth between Herbert Akins and Lincoln Heights. Interestingly, I was given the information for students being pushed out of Herbert Aiken to Lincoln Heights, but not vice versa. That number, by the way, of Herbert Akins to Lincoln Heights is 150. Those 150 kids are in addition to the 153 being sent over to Buckhorn. That means the chaos being caused at Herbert Akins is affecting over a quarter of their student population. What Glenn continues to evade, however, is how many students are moving from Lincoln Heights to Herbert Aiken, despite many of us requesting that information. Why are all the facts so secretive? As parents, we have asked for the data over and over. Why is it being hidden from us? We've been reassured that there is data to support those decisions, so why not be transparent and show it to us? From a tweet from Kung Hu from the News and Observer, I quote, Lindsay Mahaffey reiterates that the new proposal is a good compromise in her view because it's giving families multiple year-round options. Ms. Mahaffey is a poor representation of our area if she feels that statement is true. What's needed in our area aren't more traditional calendar seats. What's needed in our area isn't moving large populations of students from one school to another and one calendar to another. What's needed in our area are champions for our kids. As parents, we've worked very hard to provide facts, data, statistics, solutions, and support. We've tried to span the gap between the parents and the school board and student assignment staff, but we have not been met halfway.
Jeff Roop.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Roop. My wife Alice just spoke a few minutes ago. Roman and Eve, stand up. Stand up. Those are my kids. They're at Holly Grove Elementary School right now. They're enjoying the year-round school. The year-round school schedule, it allows us to vacation, see grandparents more often, relatives, etc. With these new proposals and reassignments, and having another option given to us, which really isn't a good compromise, Ms. Mahaffey, because you got us going 10 miles in another town from where we are now. That isn't acceptable. I'm sorry. More realistically, which would save everybody a lot of time and effort, especially the office staff who has to process all this stuff, leave the kids where they are now. Let them keep that stability. They built relationships with the kids over the last several years they've been at that school. They know a lot of the other kids in the school, some of their classmates here, the track out teacher. So it also will affect area businesses too, because I understand that's going to put a hurting on the track out camp business too, from my understanding. So basically, rather than forcing close to 700 families change their entire lives and basically put them on a schedule in a school they don't want to even be on, you know, if you're looking for spaces for traditional schools, you can have ours. You know, the demand for a traditional school, you're not getting good data, Mr. Martin. I saw your bit, or your piece a couple weeks ago when you spoke about chemistry, graphs, and things like that. You also have to have accurate data. We haven't seen any data from you guys. And it seems like this group of moms has been working very diligently to accrue a lot more accurate data than we've seen from the school board. There's not a demand for a traditional calendar where the building's going to sit dormant for 3 months out of the year while you spend millions on trailers. Has any of you ever attended a class in a trailer? I have. In the city of Boston, when I was in college, they put trailers into our college because they were renovating the big classrooms. They're cold in the winter. Very cold and very hot in the summer. And that's not a good learning environment, either extreme. So rather than spend money, time, paperwork, effort, leave the kids where they are currently. Let the new kids, incoming people, and those who want to go to traditional.
Sorry, time has expired.
Sue Ellen Steigler.
I actually come to the board tonight not as a parent, but as a teacher. I have taught for 10 years. 6 of those were in Holly Springs. I actually opened Holly Grove Elementary when it opened in the wing of the high school, so that school wasn't ready. And when the new building was ready, we actually had meet and greet in the parking lot because it wasn't ready even for meet and greet. I would like to speak on the benefits of year-round for students because I have taught both. I have taught traditional and I have taught year-round. The kids do so much better on year-round, in my opinion, especially the littler guys. I taught mostly second grade. When you start your school year in year-round, you can start your curriculum much faster. You don't have 3 months of the kids not having that structure and the learning going on. It's particularly important for kids that struggle. And we have the Read to Achieve program that the kids go to each time they're tracked out. If my kid were struggling, I don't want to wait a whole year for them to have remediation in the summer. They're just getting farther and farther behind. So for those kids, special ed kids, it makes more sense. If you're talking about reducing class sizes, where are you going to put these kids? I talked to somebody the other day that said traditional, that's easier to deal with because year-round only has 2 classes per track, but that's not true. Right now, Holly Grove sits with 12 third-grade classrooms. So it can be done on a year-round school, too. And if you're talking about growth, which I was told that you are only having numbers predicting 3 years out, that's crazy to me to make a 3-year plan for a town that is growing like Holly Springs is growing. I don't know where you're going to put these kids. I've been watching. I've lived in Holly Springs for 12 years. Holly Grove is capped. It's a year-round school. You've got Holly Springs with trailers. I mean, Holly Grove has trailers. They're sitting in trailers. And I know the teachers at Holly Grove now. Some of those kids are in these little rooms. They've had remediation classes in the back book room in the library to fit these kids in. And that's a year-round school. So I can't imagine what you're going to do with a traditional school. It does affect businesses, and full disclosure, I own a local track out camp, but that's not why I'm here. It affects parents, it affects childcare, especially in elementary school. And there's lots of track out camps in Holly Springs, but if you take 700 Buckhorn kids, put them on in the summer, those camps are gonna cap out. Not only are parents gonna bus for school now, you're busing them for childcare. There's not enough space. So having them year-round helps spread out their childcare too. And when I heard tonight
I'm sorry, your time has expired.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Carrie London.
Oh, I can see. That's good. Hi, my name is Carrie London, and I was the mother that Heather Balsley brought up. More importantly, my child's name is Mia London, and she's currently a first grader at Fuquay Elementary School. My question and confusion is a matter of logistics that since I just found out that my daughter is being moved to Herbert Aiken, I am wondering why chunks of students and mystery number chunks of students are being moved to Herbert Aiken, and then chunks of mystery students are being moved to Fuquay Elementary School. And if you just left the kids there, would that not fix the displacement of everyone's calendars? Because it's not about me going to another traditional school. It's about me staying at my own school and my daughter staying at her own school. She personally doesn't transition well. I don't know what first grader coming out of that school is going to transition well. She's going to lose all of her friends, and then she's going to come right back to middle school. She's going to have to make a whole new set of friends. And then furthermore, why, when I was told that I was moving to Herbert Aiken, was my base school, which is Fuquay Elementary, why was that already capped? And then me only being given an option to apply to stay at the school I'm already at through a process that no one can seem to explain to me. Thank you. That's all.
Reverend Dr. Portia Rochelle.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. My comments are regarding the qualities and skills that we want to see in the next superintendent. And I'm here representing the Raleigh Apex NAACP, and there's some members here with me tonight if they want to stand for a minute. It is imperative that the next superintendent be able to remain focused on the goal that all our children receive a solid fundamental education. The following are our concerns and expectations. One of the duties of our education committee is to keep informed of school conditions and to strive to correct abuses where found. We would like for the superintendent to meet with our education committee at least quarterly to discuss our findings and allow us to discuss input on resolutions. This is here because we are foot soldiers in the community. We see and hear things that will never come to this board or superintendents to investigate. Secondly, the candidates should have a clear record of promoting equality in the school system. The candidates should provide a clear position on the Office of Equity Affairs and how they plan to promote and acquire adequate funding. This office is essential, especially with the continuous bullying and racially charged incidents. We would like to see the next superintendent move the high school graduation rate to an all-time high. We want our superintendent to be very, very busy. Our superintendent should visit all 115 or more high school districts and devote more time listening to the voices of educators, parents, students, advocacy groups, and business people. He or she should serve as the chief consultant and director in the areas of business education, career and technical education, and instructional services within the NCPDI. We need a leader who is focused with his or her eyes on the education prize in preparing all Wake County Public School System children for the 21st century. Thank you for this opportunity to come in.
Is there a motion to approve the consent? Oh, do we? Yeah, he's on here. Thank you. We will now move to excuse me, to approve the consent items as amended. Is there a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. We have two action items before us this evening. The first is Board Policy 2670, Business Advisory Council, first reading. Brian Kingsley, Joanne Honeycutt, and it looks like Drew Cook as well.
Good evening, Madam Chair Johnson Hostler, Vice Chair Martin, fellow board members, Dr. Merrill. Really excited to be here with you this evening to present to you Policy 2670 for our Business Advisory Council's first reading. I would like you to note that we are requesting two separate action items regarding this policy tonight. One is a discussion and action regarding the policy itself. Second action would be requested respectfully on the specific slate of membership that would make this council whole. This is a new policy as a part of our policy migration project. It is not replacing any other policy and was approved formally at our Board of Education Policy Committee on November 28, 2017. I do think it's one important note to state to the community is that the reason that the State Board School Board of Education suggested this specific language to create the advisement of a business advisory council was in a response to the absence of formal advisory groups related to workforce development and career and technical education in many school systems across the state. The Wake County Public School System was not one of those districts. Proudly, this policy language was modeled after the infrastructures developed here in Wake County. I'm happy to entertain any questions. Respectfully, I would like for you to consider taking action on the policy first, if that is okay with you.
Yes, we could. Dr. Burton.
Yes, and the question is, Mr. Bloomberg, do we want two motions or a single?
Let's just do two motions.
Okay. On behalf of the policy committee who reviewed this policy and is pleased that Wake County was the model by which this was created, I would like to recommend approval of this new policy.
Second.
On first reading.
On first reading, yeah. That was
second.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. Any discussion or comments? All in favor, please know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
And then related to that, I would like to make a motion that we approve the slate of candidates as we agreed in policy committee. The current school to career council meets the criteria of the state legislation and of our new policy. Therefore, that slate of candidates I'd like to move be the candidates for this new Business Advisory Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Next, academic advancement, year 4, 2018-19 school enrollment. Thank you, Glenn.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm bringing to you the summary proposal for Buckhorn Creek Elementary and the related school changes as presented in the Facilities Committee this past Wednesday. If you remember, you had recently voted on and approved the enrollment plan, the student enrollment plan for 2018-2019 for all other related schools, and we're seeking your approval tonight.
I'll
Would you
now
like me to
entertain
go
a motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval, make a motion to approve the enrollment plan portion with Buckhorn Creek Elementary.
I'll second for the purposes of discussion.
Okay. Is there any discussion, comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Fletcher?
I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion, to the plan that's the subject of the motion, and that is that Buckhorn Creek Elementary be substituted for Lincoln Heights as a transfer option to Holly Grove and Herbert Akins students. So students who would be assigned to Holly Grove or Herbert Akins would have Buckhorn Creek as the traditional calendar, I guess, application school, as opposed to Lincoln Heights, which is what's in the printed proposal.
There's an amendment on the
That's a
floor.
motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
Can I accept it as a friendly amendment?
Well, that wasn't an amendment to the motion.
Yeah. So, yes. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. So first, we will address your amendment, Mr. Fletcher and Dr. Martin. All in favor? Actually, any questions?
Any questions?
About the amendment?
Is this about the amendment?
Yes. Ms. Hartenstein.
Mr. Fletcher, thank you for bringing that amendment to us to consider. We have heard from our families and providing an additional opportunity for those who want to be in a traditional school and not delaying that process for a while and making it possible with the 18-19 year, I think is, I'm appreciative of you bringing that forward. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Mr.
If I may,
Fletcher?
the
Yes.
staff had suggested that they would not want Buckhorn Creek to be a application school for a year. And this is making a change to that discussion because of that discussion we had earlier.
Thank you for clarifying. Any other
So,
comments? Or Mr. Sutton?
Before we vote on that, can you speak to within what the impact of that change then would be so that we're clear?
We can accommodate those changes a year earlier. We had the time since the Facilities Committee to look at that information, and we could accommodate it beginning in 18-19.
One of the companion aspects of this is that by removing Lincoln Heights as the transfer option, substituting Buckhorn Creek for Lincoln Heights, we're recognizing the opportunity to make sure we still have 150 seats available at Lincoln Heights for their magnet program. Those students are not in what's being assigned to Lincoln Heights. Those students are being recruited. The Buckhorn Creek, the process that's in place for applications to move into multi-track or to move out of multi-track is such that staff will know whether there's capacity available at Buckhorn Creek or not. And so that it makes sense to have Buckhorn Creek open up as an application school for in that portion of the plan for those students who had to offer that as a transfer option to Holly Grove and Herbert Aiken students seeking a traditional calendar school.
Ms. Kushner.
Again, and so staff feels that can be supported both with assignment and the transportation numbers, that would work.
That is correct.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
Lincoln Heights could continue to be a choice for any parents who, through choice, want to go to that magnet.
Through the magnet applications.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the amendment? Ms. Cash.
So how does that affect the multi-track kids that are being reassigned to Buckhorn as traditional? It doesn't.
This would not have any impact on them at all.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
It would
Ms.
open
Mahaffey.
more, but would it not open more seats at the year-round schools for families looking to stay at year-round?
So these families would be allowing to apply to Buckhorn Creek out of Herbert Akins and Holly Grove. So if they choose to make that selection, yes, it would open seats for other families to go back and forth. This now creates a two-way street between Holly Grove Elementary and Buckhorn, and Herbert Akins and Buckhorn, in the sense that they're both going to calendar back and forth to each other.
Ms. Kushner.
We heard this before, and last year, and there was between Hortons Creek and Alston Ridge Elementary, and there was a high demand for the traditional calendar at Hortons
correct.
Creek. And so I'm hopeful, given that there's 2 year-round schools and 1 traditional, maybe that balancing will work out. But again, I think it's difficult. We've heard parents talk about the need for data, and I think it's very difficult for the board to be able to predict with the specificity that some parents want about parent choices, because those also change. And so I do believe the board is doing the best it can to make sure that we have the capacity in the area for a diversity of calendars, given the experience we have in other parts of the county with calendar choice. And I know it's difficult for parents, and it's difficult for us as a board. But we've also heard a lot of emails about calendars, communities, not calendars. So we recognize we're trying to balance proximity and stability. And I think one of the issues we've had every year that I've been on the board with assignment issues is I hear stability over and over again. And I think that is the commitment we as a board have made. And one of the ways we've tried to get to stability is not making a lot of assignments changes until we open a new school. So when we do open a new school, things have been pent up for a while, I think. And it's just my own perspective. So I think, as I was hearing the parents tonight, some of this pent up, misalignment with calendars, which we have talked about a lot in this since September, as well as the over-enrollment of some schools, those have been pent up because we've been waiting for Buckhorn to open. And so now I think that has led to more assignments changes than we may have had in the past, but I think that's because we wanted some stability in the system. So I'm trying to express that the best I can, but I think we're trying to get to a lot of the things that the parents have actually raised tonight in their comments, as well as on the online forums. And I do think this is a good balance and the best decision we can make. And I regret we've not been able to explain that with the clarity that's needed, but I also feel like the goodwill that we need as a school board, because these parents clearly love their schools. And Wake County Schools is providing great schools for kids. So I would hope some of that goodwill from those great schools would come to play with some of the decisions that we are forced to make because of enrollment growth and because of class size limits.
Make the right decision. Now, I know that changes nothing for us.
And that's a good point, because this is year 4 of a multi-year plan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Cash.
Just so I'm clear on the process, when this application for the traditional happens, that happens during application time like it would any application.
February 20th through March 6th.
So we know those numbers of who's applied and who we've let in, and then the children that are being moved out of multi-track to traditional, what do they do to get back into their multi-track? Is that a transfer?
They would apply in January 10th through the 31st through the Magnet year-round application.
To go back to their year-round?
Oh, to go back,
Say
to
that-
grandfather back?
No,
Or are you
the
saying to
ones
go-
that we are actually reassigning out of multi-track to traditional tonight.
So they'll have two options. They can apply in January 10th through the 31st, if that school that they're asking to go back to is the year-round application school for their address. Or they could also apply in February 20th through March 6th.
So since we're taking applications to the traditional school to open up spots possibly in the multi-track, how do we know how many kids we can let back into multi-track?
So once we run our year-round applications, then we'll know how many seats we have for the traditional to seat in traditional. Because we run our year-round application seats first. And then once those get filled, then we know we have so much capacity at a traditional calendar school for students that have left to go to year-round that we can fill for traditional. That application window in February as well is not just for only traditional calendar schools. Students can apply for any school.
So as seats open up in the multi-track school, because traditional kids have applied into Buckhorn, and seats are opening up in, say, Holly Grove, are we going to refill those through the transfer process?
We would refill any available seats through the transfer process, but it's not just seat availabilities. That's not the only item that we look at when we look at filling seats.
Okay. This is what I need to know for the vote.
Any other questions, clarification? Ms. Kushner?
Will we keep a wait list during that process?
We will for the magnet and year-round, not for the request for transfer period. Any request that is denied during the request for transfer period will have the ability to appeal.
And they will be able to appeal
Yes.
after and when we know how many seats are at the year-round and the traditional.
As they go through the appeal process, that is correct, yes.
And I think one of the things we should remind ourselves, we set up that process because we wanted to fill the year-round schools first along with the magnet schools. That was a decision of the.
Yeah,
of this. No, that was this.
traditional
That was this year, correct? I thought we made that
those are
change
changes
this
we
year.
made for this year, that is correct.
Because we wanted to give first, we wanted the year-round schools to fill. And that's, this group made that choice.
Right. Ms. Mahaffey?
So if there's a wait list, parents will not have to reapply for a transfer in February?
No, we will
Because
process.
I don't want, and what we heard is, I'm going to have to apply in January and then possibly apply again in February. If there's a wait list, it's only the one application in January.
So if you're trying to apply into year-round and you do not get in January, I would suggest you apply again in February, exercise all of your options.
So what is the wait
We
list?
process the wait list again in April after all of the application periods. Our January application period, results go out February 14th. Shortly thereafter, we open up our request for transfer period. Any requests that are denied during that period will get an appeal. And then we also process the wait list after that appeal, as that appeal process is going through. Because it's not just the year-round, we have magnet seats that fill. What we try to do is maximize in backfilling seats that are taken throughout all of these application processes.
So the wait list is not ongoing?
The wait list is left open until April when we process it, early April. So once you get on the wait list, you stay on the wait list unless you get assigned to a school through any other application process that you're happy with. If it's the school you've requested, you get in, you're removed from the wait list. If you choose to remove yourself from the wait list, you can do so at any time.
So we need a flow chart.
Sure. Yeah. We've already worked with communications to, identify that we only have 2 application windows for families.
Okay, thank you. I think that would be helpful, and thank you, Dr.
And this
Ralph, for noting
information is
staff's
all in
working.
the assignment strips that go home with students. And we will be having assignment strips online this year as well, starting January 4th.
Okay, I appreciate multiple ways as a parent to make sure I don't miss the yellow slip, and for the clarification. Did you have your hand raised, Ms. Mahaffey?
We have an amendment that was simply replacing one traditional school for another, not really making a substantive change to the plan. Can we go ahead and clear that and then continue discussion on the
And the
total
motion's
plan?
been moved and seconded, so right, if it is approved, it would replace the initial motion, and then that would be on the floor.
Right. So you're holding your other questions, okay. We'll now take a vote on the amendment. All in favor for Mr. Fletcher's amendment, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Sorry. The motion, Melissa, did you get that? Okay.
Is this a motion for the amendment?
Yes,
just the
just the
amendment.
amendment. Just to Mr. Fletcher's point, just the substitution for schools, not the proposal as Glenn, as it's stated in your materials.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, okay. Motion carries.
Okay.
Now that is the current motion. That's now what's in place of what you see in your assembly materials.
Okay.
Okay? Now, Ms. Mahaffey?
Madam Chair, I'd like to propose a motion that would put fourth graders and their siblings until the termination of, till the fourth grader leaves the school as part of the grandfathering in this proposal. So making it fifth grade and fourth grade.
There's a motion on the floor.
Can I clarify, is that just for the Buckhorn Creek and related changes, or is that for the entire enrollment plan?
For Buckhorn.
Okay, thank you.
It needs a second for a discussion. The second is not an agreement. The second is to carry the discussion.
Second for.
Thank you. For the purpose of discussion. Thank you, Ms. Kushner. Ms. Cash.
So does that, is that the fourth and fifth graders and their siblings?
Yes.
Okay. Like we treat fifth graders now for 1 year.
Yes.
Fourth grader be for 2 years.
Correct.
Any other discussion about the current amendment?
Is it your understanding that that would involve a waiver of policy since you guys determined the grandfather provisions in the student assignment policy?
That we just voted on.
Yeah. That, I mean, you guys specified exactly what the grandfather provisions would be in policy. I mean, so I would say that if you all are going to approve it to make it clean, it should include a waiver of policy.
Okay.
I will add a waiver of board policy to my proposal.
For Buckhorn Creek specifically.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions, clarifications? Ms. Kushner?
So this will be a new precedent for Buckhorn only, so it's not going to be for the other assignments that are in the rest of the plan.
Ms. Cash?
Normally, I like that idea, but, you know, we did just discuss this with an amendment that I was going to possibly make about the Abbott's Creek. And I think we all talked about there are a lot of schools that we might want to, so I'm trying to decide how to handle this since I want everybody to have that.
Ms. Kushner?
Well, I think that's a good point, because we have listened, you know, we were able to, we got a lot of community feedback on this enrollment plan, including in, you know, the Davis Drive to East Cary move. We were able to adjust the plan there. We were able to adjust the Jeffries Grove part of this plan. I think where we had capacity, where we had transportation and other capacity to do a change that the parents gave us feedback on, we were able to do that. And I think I'm still feeling frustrated about Abbott's Creek and not being able to make that change. I think you did a great job advocating for those parents, looking at that data and meeting with staff. And so I'm with you. setting this precedent is an important decision that we're looking at. And as a point of clarification, I thought the grandfathering is that in policy, not just simply in each assignment plan? I thought we
put it in the last version of the policy that was approved.
Thank you for the reminder.
No problem.
I recall as well, we had several schools who did not like it when we put it in policy. So we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The motion fails. Thank you. Okay, back to our motion that's on the floor. That's the amendment that, to remind you, that's the amendment that Mr. Fletcher, that's the motion we currently are going to need to vote on unless there's other questions.
Can I just clarify the last vote if we could, just because, was it one in favor and everybody else against? Because
Yes,
technically
yes.
you're supposed to vote, or it's an affirmative
Yes.
vote. And I just want to make sure everybody voted no besides one. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. For those of you who raised your hands or used your voice and not both, that is an affirmative. We did, so I'm just reminding you that's the vote that's on the floor, or that's the replacement that's on the floor. Mr. Sutton, yes. Yes. Mr. Sutton.
Can you talk a little bit about her one option, or talk about stay where you start? If we had to stay where you start, and I'm not sure if Ms. Mahaffey's grandfathering piece, I'm assuming if we did stay where you start, that would impact all students at?
All schools.
At all schools, yeah.
So what impact then would, if we had stay where you start there, how would that impact the school?
So the stay where you start policy was originally was in policy 4150 with regards to trying to keep students at their schools, but when we have redistricting, it's not always possible. And so that's where the grandfathering piece would come into play, is how much is the district able to allow students to go back and grandfather and also fill the school to its needed capacity, with the projections of the student growth in that area. So, what we've done with Stay Where You Start is the board has voted on allowing the grandfathering rules as such, and that's where we've allow families to stay where they start.
Ms. Kushner.
Just for clarification, Stay Where You Start, when it was in previous policy, was from existing school to existing school, correct? But it did not apply when we were opening new schools.
We did have some when it opened new schools. We let certain grades.
Just certain grades?
Yes.
But it was not K-5? or
No, it was
or
not
what-
K-5.
When we were opening new schools, we did not have Stay Where You Start for all
That's
grades.
correct. It used to be grades 4 and 5, 8, and 11 and 12, but this year it was modified to grades 5 and 8.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hartenstein, sorry.
So we have on the table right now the motion, which is to adopt the plan as presented with the amendment, correct?
With the substitution of schools, yes.
Okay, I have some comments.
Yes.
I think the decision that we're going to make tonight as a board is going to have an impact on all families, whether they desire a traditional calendar or if they desire a year-round calendar for their children. The board's not making a decision on which calendar is a better calendar or the best calendar. I believe year-round and traditional calendars serve the needs of a growing system, the individual needs of children, and the preference of families. I have been challenged by many of the residents in Holly Springs, and I am pretty sure they're all sitting to my right in red. Thank you for your input. And they have implored me to listen to their reasons for Buckhorn Creek to open on a year-round calendar. I've read the online feedback and the 135 emails sent to board members, individually or as a group. Here's a sampling of what I've read, and I tried to pick out the ones that the themes were there and repeated. I am being forced to a calendar that doesn't match the needs of my child. We have built our lives around year-round calendar. My family's quality of life will be severely impacted if I'm forced to a traditional calendar school. Leave our families alone. Give us our choices back, and give our children the stability they deserve. Open Buckhorn Creek as a year-round. It is clear you, meaning the board, have zero desire to listen to community feedback. Fuquay-Varina families are just as important as Holly Springs families. I was moved to a year-round calendar, and I want traditional for my children. Please keep Buckhorn Creek traditional. Opening Buckhorn Creek as year-round is the right solution. My track-out camp business will suffer. I didn't know I needed to organize a campaign to advocate to support the traditional calendar for Buckhorn, as I knew from the beginning it would be traditional. The focus should be on hiring and retaining the best teachers, establishing a sensible and robust curriculum, and providing students a safe and stable environment in which to learn. As a new resident of Holly Springs, I have come to understand that infrastructure is not in place, and therefore there is way too much congestion and traffic. There are 600 new homes scheduled to be built right across the street from Buckhorn Creek. I hope you will do the right thing. So after reading all of these, I began my deliberation on this very important vote, the one that we're going to take pretty quickly. So I went to something I can usually count on, the dictionary. I asked myself, did I listen? So what does it say about listen? It's defined as to hear something with thoughtful attention. Give consideration. I want to read that again. Listen means to hear something with thoughtful attention and give consideration. I believe that each board member gave thoughtful attention and consideration to every suggestion and opinion expressed by families. There were many, many questions that we asked of staff. We asked for more data and numbers, which was provided. We looked at alternate solutions offered by board members and by families, some of which on the surface seemed wonderful until we dug deep and got more information. We investigated options. We had phone calls between us. We had meetings with individual board members and with staff. We even delayed the decision so that we can make sure we got all of our questions answered. When we take our final vote tonight, it'll be a decision made because thoughtful attention and consideration of the multiple needs of our district have been taken into account.
Ms. Cash.
I hate to follow that, but first of all, Mr. Carosa, I respect you a lot for what you do. You have a lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes by the boards previous to us. a lot of decisions that have made that made your job really, really tough. And I don't think anybody in this room has any idea. And so I respect our student assignment a lot. I respect our administration a lot. And I respect our board a lot. And not to get groans from this board. You know, I was on the board once before. And I have to say, nobody really wants to hear about that. But the only reason I bring that up is that in the 90s, you know, we decided to do multi-track schools the first time in Wake County, and we did it because we just could not keep up with the growth. We could not keep up. And we also had a lot of our board that wanted to renovate schools, and there was just not enough funding to go around. We didn't have always as understanding community as we do now. I'm actually only saying this because the one thing I've been very consistent about is that in high growth areas, I just cannot understand why we would move multi-track to traditional. And I only say that, and before anybody out there likes me, I have to say this as well because I'm not that likable. Actually, you know, in my area, North Raleigh, we've had reassignment considerably. And back in the 90s when we had to reassign quite a bit, and we went to multi-track, and we've had reassignment now because of the K-3 legislation, and that's just impacted everything we're doing here, including what's going to happen at Buckhorn. But we've reassigned a lot even now, right now out there, and I've had to work with a lot of people, but again, just going from multi-track to traditional is just nothing I've ever been able to understand. And I think it took me a while on this board to realize as well that we were reassigning from calendar to calendar, and that was new to me too because that was something that was never done very often, if at all, because we didn't actually have a mandated year-round program. So I was fortunate in that. The other thing I wanted to say is that I take student assignment it's been my thing over the years. If anybody's ever known me, it's been my thing, and I've taken it very serious and listened to a lot of people and things. So by the time an assignment plan would come to the board table, usually I've been able to work out some type of a compromise, or we've tried to be able to come up with something that would work for the full plan. And so I can only remember one other time that maybe I've ever voted against a student assignment plan. But having said that, I think reluctantly tonight I'm going to have to vote against this. And I only wanted to say that because, you know, it takes a lot for me to do that because of all the work that goes into it. But again, I consistently cannot understand moving multi-track out of multi-track into traditional in a high-growth, high-density area.
Mr. Agee.
I'll just say again, I know that if the board was to decide to make Buckhorn Creek year-round, that could be accomplished, given the substantial completion date that's in place. That is the date that it is supposed to be ready for our use, being July 3. That says it's ready that day. Anything about moving furniture in and the other little pieces, the small bumps in the road, I think can be accomplished. I have faith that if we set to that task, it can be accomplished. We've heard here the parents this evening say that they're willing to be a participant in that. I think that they would willingly accept any very minor issues that would still remain after July 3. I see no reason why Buckhorn cannot open as a year-round. I think every time we offer a new option here at the time of the vote, that just adds more confusion to the parents and the whole community, because there's probably people who thought they were not impacted at all that now are going to have an impact. Moving the impact from one group to another is not solving our issue. And I'm all for Buckhorn to be year-round.
Ms. Mahaffey.
Mr. Agee, I appreciate your comments. I wish you would have brought them to the discussion table as forcefully as you did tonight and in previous, because I have not heard a lot of the things that you've brought here at our work session. And I'm just asking that the next time we go through this process, that you use your voice. It is valued, but I want to hear it when we can have that discussion and hear from staff.
Hearing no further discussion, we will now vote on the current amendment on the floor. The underlying.
The underlying motion.
Yes, with
As
Mr. Fletcher's, as amended, Mr. Fletcher's substitution.
Could we have the amendment repeated, please? I think it would be important so that we are sure that we are voting the way we intend to.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The change that we've already voted on was to, let me find the right slide, was to substitute let me find it.
So was it?
I don't receive this.
For students who are assigned or attend Holly Grove and Herbert Akins, who would like a traditional calendar school, the option to attend was changed to Buckhorn Creek rather than Lincoln Heights. That's the only change that we've made at the table tonight. And I'm not sure what slide that's on.
That wouldn't be on any of our current slides.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
in their
all right.
original proposal.
And is that clear to you?
Yes, that
Since
is.
you're going to have to implement it?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we're voting on year 4 of the student enrollment plan for 1819. This proposal for Buckhorn Creek Elementary with the change of the application traditional school as stated in Mr. Fletcher's amendment.
Correct.
That Buckhorn Creek will be the application school for
Herbert Akins.
Herbert
and
Akins
Holly
Akins and
and
Holly
Holly
Grove.
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 Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Everyone's clear on the vote we're about to take. All in favor, please know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
No.
Okay. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good try.
I will now entertain a motion for the HR items that were approved in closed session.
Madam Chair, a motion to approve the human resource items from closed session.
Need a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion to go back into closed session for the items printed on the agenda.
Yeah, if we could read it since we didn't do
Sure.
it previously, that'd be great. Thank you.
Is that the revised?
Yes, it's revised.
Still a lot. Motion to go into closed session to consider confidential personal information protected under GS 143-318.11 A1, A3, and A6, and 115C-319. To consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in GS 143-318.11 A3. To consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in GS 143-318.11 A3 due to litigation regarding Yesenia Anavor Basoria versus Wake County Board of Education and our Wake County Superior Court case number 17 CVS 13217 NV a minor and Janine and Derek Vlasati versus Wake County Board of Education and our Federal District Court Civil Action 517-CV-578D and Willie Leeden versus Wake County Board of Education and all Wake County Superior Court case number 15 CVS 13866. To consult with an attorney employed or retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consult with and instruct board staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the board in negotiation of price, and other material terms of a proposed contract for the acquisition of real property in Raleigh bearing a street address of 1207 Willow Street, having Wake County PN 1714-8337, and owned by Meadowlands of Raleigh LLC. To consult with an attorney employed or retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consult with and instruct board staff and negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the board on the particulars of the acquisition of real property for public infrastructure improvements related to the Garner-Magnet High School site, and to receive the board's instruction as to the position to be taken on behalf of the board in negotiations in relation thereto, and to consider confidential student information protected under GS 115C-402 and the Family Education and Privacy Rights Act 20 U.S. Code 1232G.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We will now return to closed session.
Thanks, Keith.